The useless and powerless UN, a stage for empty rhetoric and careerism. The United Nations, UN, once envisioned as a beacon of international diplomacy and cooperation, has devolved into a bureaucratic spectacle with little to no actual influence on global events. It has become a place where leaders gather not to enact meaningful change, but to enhance their personal profiles with photo opportunities and speeches full of empty promises. The UN has proven to be an ineffective organization, incapable of enforcing decisions or compelling nations to act. Its relevance in addressing the most pressing global issues has diminished to the point where it exists primarily as a symbolic institution, one that consumes vast resources while delivering minimal results. At its core, the UN was created to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, and promote social progress, better living standards, and human rights. However, over the years, it has failed repeatedly to fulfill these lofty goals. Despite holding countless sessions, drafting resolutions, and issuing statements, the UN has no real power to enforce its decisions. This failure is glaringly obvious in conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian issue, the war in Ukraine, and the ongoing genocide in Gaza. In all these cases, the UN has been either powerless or unwilling to act effectively, constrained by its structure and the interests of powerful nations. The UN's powerlessness in global conflicts. The most telling example of the UN's impotence is its inability to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. For decades, Israel has maintained an illegal occupation of Palestinian land, violating numerous UN resolutions in the process. Despite these clear breaches of international law, the UN has done little more than issue statements and condemnations. There have been no meaningful efforts to force Israel to withdraw from occupied territories or halt the expansion of settlements, largely because key members of the UN Security Council, particularly the United States, shield Israel from international scrutiny. This dynamic reveals a fundamental flaw within the UN. Its decisions are not driven by justice or the common good, but by the political interests of its most powerful member states. Similarly, the UN has been ineffective in addressing the war in Ukraine. As Russia's invasion continues to devastate the region, the UN has again been reduced to a bystander, limited to expressing concern while being unable to take decisive action. Despite the suffering of millions, the organization is paralyzed by the veto power wielded by permanent members of the Security Council, such as Russia itself. This same lack of action is evident in Gaza, where the UN has failed to stop the mass killings and displacement of Palestinians. In these and other cases, the UN's structural limitations render it incapable of enforcing international law, reducing it to a stage for hollow speeches and public relations stunts. A career platform for the global elite. While the UN may be ineffective in resolving conflicts or addressing global challenges, it serves another purpose, providing a lucrative career platform for diplomats, bureaucrats, and global elites. High-ranking positions in the UN come with substantial salaries, generous benefits, and the prestige of holding an international diplomatic role. For many, the UN is not a place to drive change, but rather a stepping stone to higher positions in global governance, consulting, or corporate lobbying. It has become an organization more focused on maintaining its own existence and providing career advancement opportunities than on fulfilling its founding mission. The role of the UN in perpetuating the interests of global elites is undeniable. The Rockefeller family, among others, played a crucial role in the establishment of the UN, donating land for its headquarters and shaping its early development. Many critics argue that the UN serves the interests of these wealthy and powerful families who influence its agenda behind the scenes. Decisions are not made based on what is best for the world, but on what serves the interests of these influential actors. In this context, the UN's inability to act decisively makes sense. It is not designed to challenge the global status quo, but rather to preserve it. An expensive farce. Given the UN's impotence, one must question why the world continues to invest so much money and time in this organization. The annual UN General Assembly, where world leaders gather to deliver speeches, has become an expensive charade. Leaders travel to New York, accompanied by large entourages, to deliver speeches that are forgotten as soon as they are made. These speeches often serve little more than as platforms for personal and political posturing. For example, leaders use this international stage to build their public profiles, securing future roles in international organizations, NGOs, or corporate boards. In this sense, the UN has become a theater for political and diplomatic showmanship, disconnected from the realities of the world's most pressing problems. The world's most vulnerable populations, those suffering from war, famine, displacement, and persecution, are left waiting for solutions that never come. Meanwhile, the UN continues to host its meetings, pass its resolutions, and collect its funding, all without producing tangible results. Conclusion: an outdated and ineffective institution. The United Nations, once a symbol of hope for global cooperation, has become an outdated and ineffective institution. Its lack of power to enforce decisions, combined with its susceptibility to manipulation by powerful member states and global elites, has rendered it virtually useless in addressing the world's most critical issues. The organization has transformed into a career platform for diplomats and bureaucrats, more concerned with maintaining its own existence than with driving meaningful change. In an era of unprecedented global challenges, it is clear that the world needs new solutions, not more empty speeches from a powerless UN.